In terms of priorities for the Finance Minister, I think first and foremost it should really be growth and trying to kickstart growth in the economy. The time for bold reforms is actually now, because this government is kind of halfway through its tenure, and before they get into more state elections next year and the general elections a couple of years from now, I think now's the time to really act and get some growth going. We have to look at it from both ends of the spectrum. On the one hand, we need to stimulate rural demand. We find rural demand across products and categories has slowed down very drastically, and this is what we keep hearing from our clients all the time. Obviously, the agricultural sector is affected, and the monsoon hasn't helped either. So I think keeping the rural demand in mind, one is hoping that the government will announce schemes to help this part of India. As far as the rest of the country goes, the government would do well to incentivize the private sector to invest more in not just manufacturing and increasing their services, but also just to keep in mind that the India growth story at the end of the day is still very robust and intact, but the sentiment right now seems to be a little low. Any incentives or SOPs that will help private sector investment, I think is the need of the hour. And of course, growth cannot happen if you don't improve infrastructure. I think that's one area where we're really lagging behind other markets and economies. And I'm really hoping that the government announces incentives for private sector participation in infrastructure. Infrastructure is obviously a very complicated and very massive issue. It's not just to do with roads and railways, but digital infrastructure as well. And I think if India has to leapfrog from where it is today, the government has to do a lot more on digital infrastructure, or highways as the Prime Minister calls them. One can hope to see a few announcements. One, I think, is education. Education is a sector which is an investment for the future, and I think it's high time the government incentivizes the private sector to play a more active role, not just private sector from within India, but also a lot of the foreign universities who are keen to come into India and provide quality education. While we have expanded the number of IITs and IIMs, I think we need to focus on quality, because it's not just quantity, and anything the government can do in terms of increasing investment in these institutes would help. And last but not the least, healthcare, which is I think another very important sector, again, given the kind of demographics we have in India. And so I'm hoping that the government is going to be announcing schemes that are going to help us at some level have a robust India healthcare plan, which is all inclusive and takes into account not just senior citizens and youngsters, but also people from across both rural as well as urban India.